when an exception is thrown, it cannot be ignored. It must be handled somewhere. It can either be handled by the program or by the default exception handler. When the code in the method throws an exception, normal execution of that method stops at the point where the exception is thrown, and the JVM will search for a compatible exception handler inside the method. If there's no exception handler inside the method, control of the program will pass to a previous method in the call stack. And then if that method has no exception handler, then the control is passed again up the call stack to the previous method. So over and over and over. If control reaches the main method, either the main method handles the exception or the program will halt and the default exception handler handles the exception. So this is going through the call stack. This is another important reason to maintaining the call stack, that you will go through the call stack to find the appropriate error handler, or without the error handler, without a specified error handler, you will utilize the default exception handler in the main method. There are two categories of exceptions, checked and unchecked. Unchecked exceptions are those derived from the error class or the runtime exception class. And we already said error class, exceptions from error class are thrown when the critical error occurs and should not be handled. Runtime exception serves as a superclass for exceptions that result from programming errors, like the Java index or like the array out of index error, right? These exceptions can be avoided with properly written code. Unchecked exceptions in most cases should not be handled. So all exceptions that are not derived from error or runtime exception are checked exceptions. What are checked exceptions? If the code in the method can throw a checked exception, the method must handle the exception, or it must have a throw clause listed in the method header. The throws clause informs the compiler that exceptions can be thrown from a method. Okay, so this can be a little bit twisty, but tricky. But let's use an example here. Now you can see that you have this open file operations here, right? The code in this method is capable of throwing checked exceptions. Why? Because this new scanner operation may throw a checked method. And it says this method will not compile. Why? Because new scanner, this method, this constructor will throw a file not exist exception. And somewhere this must be handled or be thrown. Either your display file must throw this exception to the caller, or it must handle it. It cannot just ignore this exception and pretending nothing is happening. The code is method of throwing checked exceptions, which is a file not found one. So you can use the throws file not exception to tell whoever is calling this display file that I'm not going to handle this exception. You need to handle that. If you call me, you need to handle this file not found exception. Or you will handle this, use a try-catch statement inside your display. You put a try-catch here so that you're handling this file not found properly, and this will no longer be thrown through the call stack chain.